Is there anything that you think Trump has done right?
Yeah, I mean, I think cracking down on fentanyl, making sure our borders are stronger. Look, nobody thinks illegal immigration is appropriate.
Oh, Mike, that's helpful. Thanks, Bernie. I appreciate that. He just undermined the entire Democratic argument. Yeah, we got to do more on fentanyl. We got to do more on the border, obviously connected. But that's actually a great clip that I hope the Trump administration plays over and over and over again. All right, guys, good Monday to you. I hope you had a great weekend. So much to get to. So much. If you are one of those people that has a bracket following March Madness, according to like the NCAA and all of these people that do the brackets, CBS and whatever else, ESPN, they're literally saying that there isn't one perfect bracket left. Not one. I mean, the first rounds or two, there were some big upsets, Drake, McNeese, and then the loss of UConn early on, St. John. I mean, it's been pretty big. So anyway, by the way, two big things that I want to talk to you guys about today after some housekeeping issues. There's some stuff on the MAHA agenda. That's the Make America Healthy Again agenda that is being put forward that is not getting talked about enough, that is so fundamental to how we live our lives. I'm not kidding you guys when I say to you that like some of the stuff I'm going to share with you today that Kennedy put out, it may come across as earth-shattering that it's been allowed to occur. And I'm not, like that's not hyperbole. Like it blows my mind, some of the stuff that's been happening and that has now been exposed. And then I've got an update on Tesla. The vandalism that occurs. Let me just think about this, how to put this. I'm going to show you guys something that I bet you haven't seen anywhere else when it comes to why we're seeing the videos that we're seeing. That's my tease for you because it really is that kind of cool. But over the weekend, President Trump was in Philadelphia for the NCAA wrestling champion. Now, I can't think about this. This guy's gone to like the Super Bowl. He goes to all these UFC fights. It's kind of cool to see a president out and about in an NCAA wrestling match. I don't know that that's ever occurred in history, maybe back in like 1842 or something. But it was really cool. And there's this clip of Wyatt Hendrickson, who's a second lieutenant U.S. Air Force, saluting Donald Trump after winning his national title. There's another guy who won like his fifth, weight class, which is, I think, an NCAA record. He's going after. Trump goes into this in Pennsylvania. Huge, huge applause. But I think it's so cool. You're the president of the United States and you're attending these NCAA things. Conversely, you're an NCAA wrestler and you've got the president of the United States attending. And Mark Wayne Mullen was there, senator from Oklahoma, Dave McCormick, senator from Pennsylvania. It's kind of cool. I mean, I don't know. I just think it's just like, wow, like, this isn't like basketball. Everybody goes to March Madness or watches the shows, but wrestling doesn't get that much attention. And here's the president out there doing it. It's kind of cool in my mind. I think that's an awesome, awesome thing for the president. And it's so much of a contrast to what we saw, isn't it? I mean, President Biden, you barely saw the guy. Like, barely. And here we are, like, seeing this dude all over the weekend. And the thing that I thought was neat, and I know this is, like, inside the weeds, but he built his weekend around it. He didn't go to Mar-a-Lago. He went to Bedminster so that he could just jet over to Philadelphia the next day for this NCAA tournament. Like, he built a weekend around going to this. I thought that's pretty cool. Speaking of the Air Force and the military, though, on Friday, they announced the F-47, which is the next generation of fighter jet. It is literally a game changer. It's built, according to the Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, to outpace, outmaneuver, and dominate any adversary. It's the world's first sixth-generation fighter. It's capable of doing all this cool stuff with drones. I think this is pretty awesome. And another big air achievement over the weekend, although technically not in the Air Force's realm, but Lockheed Martin Sikorsky delivered the VH-92A presidential helicopter. First time he got ridden on. I actually was surprised this didn't get more attention. The president took his first ride on Friday, and there's actually footage of him taking off. And it was funny. I thought that there would be more media attention to the new Marine One, technically called HMX-1. But, it was interesting. It's kind of cool. The president, when he was first in office, they talked about the next generation of HMX-1, Marine One, and the new Air Force One, and he thought, "Wow, this is going to be cool, but I don't know that I'll ever get to ride on them." Pretty fortuitous, isn't it? Because of this 4-year gap that he's going to do this. Also, in the housekeeping bucket here is an announcement that Usha Vance, the second lady, is headed to Greenland later this week. This is going to be interesting. She's heading off over with the National Security Advisor, Mike Waltz. Now, here's the thing that's interesting. If it was just the second lady going to visit Greenland to get a tour, to celebrate, maybe meet the troops over at our base there, that'd be one thing. She's bringing Mike Waltz, the National Security Advisor. There's a reason he's going, folks. The national security significance of Greenland. Its proximity to the Arctic, a place that the Chinese, the Russians all want to start getting the minerals of, is coming soon. And so we have a footprint over there. We have a military base. And I think whatever ends up, who knows what's really inside President Trump's mind when it comes to negotiating. I know he wants to take it over, but maybe it's just increasing our military footprint, our strategic advantage over there in that region. I hope so. I think that would be pretty cool. Plus, I think it can't be left out of the discussion, the mineral rights that exist under the Arctic. That's massive. And if the Chinese and the Russians, whether or not we protect them or play for them is sort of a second story, but I think it's a big deal. Also, in the I can't believe this is true category of things, Ron DeSantis puts out a tweet that says, for years, Florida has been trying to return unspent COVID funds. Now, I'm not talking like $15 or $1,000 or $10,000. It wasn't stuff that they just had left over in an account. We're talking about $500 billion. And they literally couldn't get the Biden administration to take the money. I mean, stop. Think about that for a second. Somebody calls me up and says, "Hey, Sean, I got $5 that I think I owe you." I'm like, "Hey, where do you want me to meet you?" These guys in the state of Florida are saying we have $500 billion. More than that. More than that. More than $500 billion. Closer to 2/3. And the federal government's like, "Yeah, I don't even know how to process this. How do we give it back to you?" Do you understand how insane that is? It took Elon Musk and President Trump to say, "Oh yeah, we'll do it. You want to do direct deposit? What do you want to do? Venmo us?" Like, how insane is it that the federal government doesn't know how to take in money? Why can't it do this with my taxes? Seems to have no problem with that. Hey, Mr. Spicer, here's how much you owe. Pay it now. But when it comes to $500 billion from the state of Florida in unused COVID funds, it's like, I'm not really sure how we do this. This is crazy. This is our government. Thank God we're actually starting to ask smart questions about how it works. All right. Well, over the weekend, Gavin Newsom got destroyed by CNN. I want you to play this clip because it is insane to see his attempt to tie himself in a pretzel and sound normal with what he had actually done in the past. Take a look. I'll show you what I'm talking about.
So let's talk about the word Latinx. Just 2 weeks ago, here's what he said about it.
By the way, not one person ever in my office has ever used the word Latinx.
So can we finally put that to bed?
Yeah,
we agree?
where did that even
No
go?
more Latinx,
like,
everybody.
Well, I just didn't even know where it came from. I'm like, what are people talking about?
But there was a person who used Latinx. It was actually a really important person. It was him. Right?
Yeah, that's right. And look, these aren't minor shifts. These are progressive issues that Gavin Newsom used to champion until fairly recently. And now he's not just walking away from them. He's sort of acting like they were never legitimate with that clip talking about Latinx in the first place. But let's take Latinx. We did find somebody who used it repeatedly in his office. Let's take a listen to this.
I hope we can really paint a picture in terms of our consciousness of how impactful this has been on the Latinx community. The Latinx and Black communities. You've got politicians that are banning not assault rifles, but the word Latinx. They're not even serious.
Yeah. Who would have used that in his office except him? It's kind of crazy, isn't it? I mean, this is the guy who goes out there and says, I don't know who would ever use that term except me. But we can't let Gavin Newsom get away with this, or any of these other Democrats who've been out on the far extreme progressive left and suddenly want to mainstream themselves. No bueno, dude. Not going to happen. We need to call them out on it. Yes, it was good, especially in that case where Charlie Kirk says, okay, so we're not going to use it anymore. But at some point, it should take more than CNN to call them on his face. Look at those clips over and over again. He didn't just use it one time. This was part of his vernacular. So anyway, speaking of elections, though, but going outside the state for a second, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney announced a federal election. So guess what? Gear up, Canadians. In April, you're going to have an election to choose your new prime minister. The lead opposition person is Conservative Party leader Pierre Poilievre. He's that guy, remember with the Apple? Remember with the Apple? He was just like, who says? They? It's awesome. Brilliant. I'm hoping that Trump does something to help Pierre, because Mark Carney, this liberal successor to Gavin Newsom, is trying to make it about Trump and rally people around him, not by his policies, but just anti-Trump. And we need to make sure that that doesn't happen. But speaking of elections, before we get into some of the really cool stuff that I have for you today, speaking of elections here at home, this is dead serious. The Bidens have made it clear that they want back in. That's right. They want to help fundraise and campaign for Democrats. So let's get this straight. They couldn't campaign for themselves. Most candidates didn't want them in their district. And now, after the disaster of November, they stick their head up and say, I could do this. Dude, I'm sorry. Like, you weren't present, I think is how they say it, for the last 4 years. And now you suddenly want to campaign. So I just hope that Democrats take them up on it. Let the guy in. Open the door wide. Come on in, Joe Biden. All right, a lot to get to. Again, about the Maha movement, about Tesla. And I'm telling you guys, sit down. This Tesla thing is awesome, I think, anyway. But I'm going to tell you, this weekend had a lot of family in town. Lot of family. We had some big family events. And you know what I do when I have a lot of family in town? I make a big, fresh pot. In fact, several of Wired to Fish coffee. Everybody loved it. It's great. I love this stuff. It's got delicious Arabica beans that are sourced from the best places. And the thing that I love, and I use the medium roast just in case anyone's asking. By the way, coffee's going up in price apparently for a bunch of reasons. So go to Wired to Fish coffee right now, because you're going to get a deal, and that's what you want. But these guys, it's not just great coffee, which it is, and I love making it when people come over. I made it a couple extra because now I've got iced coffee for the whole week, which is one of my favorites, even when it's a little chilly, but it's getting warmer. It supports a great cause. These guys believe in faith-based causes and positive clean air, clean water initiatives. And it's all stuff like, they go to their website and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. They love Jesus, fishing, and coffee. And they do all of it really well. That's why I love them. 25% of their profits go back to great initiatives. Vote with your wallet these days, guys. Go. If you're a coffee drinker, drink a great coffee from a great place. Don't feel guilty that you just gave a coffee place your money and they're going to do bad things with it. The folks at Wired to Fish are great people with a great coffee. So start your day off. Go to Wired. It's the numeral 2, Wired to Fish coffee. And actually, here's the cool part. For right now, you can get this. They've got this promotional deal right now. This is a Sean Spicer Yeti tumbler. I love this thing, by the way. It says Wired to Fish on one side, Sean Spicer Show. You can't get these things anywhere else. I literally used my own money and went and bought a bunch because I wanted them. I love these tumblers so much, and I love the coffee. So it's a great brand, and I'll give you a discount code. It's We Care, one word, We Care, one word, for 10% off your first order. And right now, they're actually doing a discount on the tumblers with the coffee. I like I said, I've got a few. You should get a few. These things are awesome. Go to Wired, the numeral 2 Fish coffee, and support a great coffee that's aligned with your values. All right, guys, the last thing I want to tell you about before we get into it. The IRS, as you know, is the largest collection agency in the world. And right now, guess what? It's tax season. They're stepping up their enforcement. So if you owe back taxes or have unfiled returns, do not wait. They will come after you. They need money. Welcome to Washington. They need money to spend. And so simply avoiding them is not a strategy. If you know that you owe stuff or you haven't filed stuff, the IRS will come after you. So get ahead of the curve. Tax Network USA are the best professionals in the business as far as I'm concerned. And they have a preferred direct line to the IRS. They know who to talk to, who not to talk to, when to talk to them, what kind of deals to make and which ones to avoid. They've received over $1 billion behalf of their clients. Think about that. So if you owe $10 million, $10, whatever it is, don't wait. Get ahead of the curve. Call them. Talk to one of their strategists. It's absolutely free. You will stop the threatening letters. They will help advocate on your behalf and take over all of the interaction with the IRS. Just call 1-800-905-8000. Better yet, go to tnusa.com/Sean Spicer. TN, Tax Network USA, tnusa.com/Sean Spicer. All one word. SEANSPICER. tnusa.com/Sean Spicer. All right, guys, a quick update on the Sunday shows. Bernie is on tour with AOC. Yeah, that's the future of the Democratic Party. Bernie Sanders and AOC. God bless you. He was asked on, he appeared on ABC's This Week with Chief Washington Gadfly Jonathan Karl about whether or not he agreed with Trump on anything. Let me play you the clip.
Is there anything that you think Trump has done right?
Yeah, I mean, I think cracking down on fentanyl, making sure our borders are stronger. Look, nobody thinks illegal immigration is appropriate.
Oh, Mike, that's helpful. Thanks, Bernie. I appreciate that. By the way, I mean, he just undermined the entire Democratic argument. Yeah, we got to do more on fentanyl. We got to do more on the border, obviously connected. But that's actually a great clip that I hope the Trump administration plays over and over and over again. By the way, right after that, he just gets up and walks away from the interview and says, hey, if you're going to do 9 cents, I'm not going to do it, and walks away from Jonathan Karl. It was actually kind of funny. Well-deserved, by the way. One time, I actually applaud Bernie Sanders. Steve Witkoff, though, the special envoy for Ukraine, was on Fox talking about dealing with Putin. Let me play that for you.
I met with President Putin twice at the direction of the president, because everything I do is at his direction. And they were productive meetings. We accomplished quite a bit. We opened channels of communication. President Putin told me at the first meeting that he had had no conversation with the prior administration, in particular President Biden, for 3.5 years. I'm not sure how anyone would expect an end to a conflict when you're not communicating. So we had a very, very good conversation, productive. We discussed real ways to end this conflict. That led to a second conversation. First conversation being close to 3.5 hours. Second conversation being in that time, in that space as well, 3.5 or 4 hours. That led to agreement. By the end of the second conversation, we had proposals on an energy infrastructure ceasefire and a Black Sea moratorium on firing on each other's ships. And these things had been on the shelf for several years. So I think that's commendable on the part of all of the parties. And this is at President Trump's direction. His philosophy of peace through strength brings people to the table to clear up misconceptions and to get peace deals done. And that's exactly what's happening right now.
So you know why that's important? If you listen to the media, they'll be like, I can't believe they're talking to Putin. What are they going to do? Da, 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 da. Do you hear what Steve Witkoff said? A lot of these ideas have been shelved for years. No one would actually talk about them. No one would talk to them. How do you think you're going to end a war? How do you end the killing, the destruction, if you don't actually have a conversation with both sides? And if you go after Putin and say he's a horrible, horrible person, which he is, but if you publicly goad him, do you think he's going to come to the table? Think about this. For all of the hand-wringing and the whining from the left, think about all the progress that Steve Witkoff just detailed. None of that happened under Biden. In fact, the only thing that happened under Biden was the annexation of land, people getting killed, destruction of property, buildings, government buildings, personal sites that are historical. All that happened under Biden. We're moving closer to a ceasefire, to an end of the war under Trump because of the leadership of President Trump and people like Steve Witkoff. It is unbelievable, though. The media just doesn't get it, and neither do folks on the left. But at the end of the day, if you're worried about outcomes, then that's what matters. Speaking of outcomes, Tom Homan was also out doing the Sunday show rounds. I want to play you a little bit of what he said on border security.
They were given due process as according to the laws on the books. See, that's the difference between the Trump administration and Biden administration. We're actually using the laws on the books to enforce immigration law and secure the border at the highest level it's ever been. The Biden administration not only ignored the law, they violated the law. Like district court in District 5 said that not only are they violating law, they're actually ignoring the law altogether. We are using the laws on the books to enforce our borders, immigration laws, and the interior enforcement enforcement. If you look at the border numbers are down 96%. We already got 40,000 criminals removed by ICE in the interior, which more was done in 6 weeks than the Biden administration did in a year. We're using the laws on the books. We're not making this up. Everything we've done is based on a statute that was enacted by Congress and signed by the president. The president quickly, by proclamation, invoked the authorities he has under the Alien Enemies Act, which he's allowed to do.
I mean, it's just funny. Again, results, right? We're taking people out of the country that aren't supposed to be here. We're getting border crossers down. And the last administration just didn't follow the law. And now President Trump is getting scolded by these left-wing media hacks because he's actually using the law to follow the law. It's funny, when people come in, they go, these people didn't have a record. Really? How'd they get into the country? How'd they come into the country? Because if you broke the law to come into the country, you are by nature a criminal. So why are you on the left so worried about people who broke the law being sent out of the country? Doesn't that send the right message that we're a country of laws, that you actually have to obey the law to come in here? Like, would you tolerate that at your own house? Maybe that's what they should say to some of these reporters. What would you say if someone just entered your house? They have a right to be there? The door was unlocked. Is it okay then? I mean, I don't think any of these people would argue that it's okay just to come into their house uninvited, unwelcome. And that's what they're doing at our border. They're coming into our country uninvited, unwelcome. But just because the Biden administration didn't prosecute them, didn't follow the law, you shouldn't chide President Trump for actually following the law and losing it. But speaking of losing, Chuck Schumer was out there over the weekend trying to become fighter Chucky and show that he's pushing back, because that's what the left wants now. They think Chuck's not fighting hard enough for them. And so what is the go-to on the left? You guessed it, democracy. Take a look.
Do you agree, is the United States in a constitutional crisis?
Yes, I do, Kristen, and democracy is at risk. Look, Donald Trump is a lawless, angry man. He thinks he should be king. He thinks he should do whatever he wants, regardless of the law. And he thinks judges should just listen to him. Now, we have to fight that back in every single way.
It's funny, they talk about the Constitution and democracy, and then judges. Really? So if you actually weren't following the Constitution, or if democracy was in peril, as Kristen Welker falsely claims, Donald Trump would just be doing things, right? He would just say, I'm not going to listen to Congress or the courts. But he is. His team disagrees with them. They're going to court and they're appealing decisions or making arguments. That's actually how the system works. See, the Democrats believe that if you're a Republican, you should just do nothing, sit back and take it. If you use the system, isn't that the system? Hey, I don't like it, I go to court. Judge rules on me. If I like it, great. If I don't, I appeal it. That's actually how democracy, so to call it a crisis, I mean, that's the hype. That's ridiculous. And I get Chuck Schumer's backed into a corner because he's about to lose his job. He's a feckless leader and he's being called on it. He's well past his prime. But to perpetrate these lies and misinformation about the country on the verge of a constitutional crisis is false, it's misleading, and it's a scare tactic. And it's funny because the media, people like Kristen Welker, believe it too, because they're leftists. So they'll use terms like that. But just remind people the next time they bring it up, how is it undermining the Constitution or democracy if you actually use the Constitution to play by the rules? Kind of odd, isn't it, for someone who's trying to undermine it? Linda McMahon was also out. Big action on Friday with the president dismantling within the law, the Department of Education. And here's the cool thing. This is what she said about what the overall goal is.
Our goal is to make sure that we are providing the best education for students in our country. We cannot be last in the world in education because we are impacting our national security. We are impacting those next, second, and third generations that are coming along. It is up to us and our responsibility to make sure we are giving them the best access to education.
Now, keep in mind, the left and the media want to talk about this Department of Education and all these kids that are going to be at risk. Here's what Trump and the team are doing. And it goes back to something that Reagan started talking about in the 80s. We're just actually sending the money and the authority back to the states, to local authority, so that you, who could probably meet your school board, go to a meeting, see them in your communities, in your neighborhood, can affect change, can talk about curriculum, issues, concerns. But what the president did over the weekend was awesome. So just to keep in mind when these leftists talk about this, did you know, for example, that school lunches, they're not handled by the Department of Education. They're handled by the Department of Agriculture. So one would argue, well, wait a second, how did that happen? Because, that didn't seem to make sense. Well, one of the things that the president did over the weekend was start to farm stuff out. So student loans, which, by the way, prior to Obama had been a private function, he said, well, why don't we have the Small Business Administration that deals with loans a lot start to handle student loans? This is what they do largely. They are actually experts in this field. So we'll do that. And then what we'll do is we'll farm out the piece of this that helps children with disabilities to Health and Human Services, because they already do a lot of that. You get my point here is that instead of having one big bureaucracy with a ton of unaccountable, faceless bureaucrats that stand in the way between you and your kid's education, why don't we start to push some of this away to people who are probably better at doing it, and then the rest of it and the money gets block granted and goes to the states? It was just interesting because they don't want to actually tell you about how it's working, because the school tests are horrible. Our kids are not doing better, especially in that area of STEM, science, math. No, we spend more, we get less. So why not actually do something to affect change? But speaking of HHS, big news on the MAHA front. Secretary Kennedy doing a lot that I thought was pretty cool. One of the things that he did was, he acknowledged that he was going to handle this special needs aspect of it. But then he spent Friday bringing a bunch of kids in for World Down Syndrome Day. And it was a really cool event. He spent a bunch of time with them. His wife, Cheryl Hines, there with him as well. I thought that was pretty darn cool. And then he also announced this big thing called Operation Stork Speed, and it deals with baby food. I want to play you the clip and just give you a sense of what he's talking about here.
Hi, this is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. As Secretary of Health and Human Services, one of the agencies that I oversee is the Food and Drug Administration. The FDA is responsible for making sure that the food and medicine that Americans put into their body is safe. That's important for everyone, but especially for our children, because they're the most vulnerable, and the most vulnerable of all are our babies. If there's one food that must be safe beyond any doubt, it's infant formula. Mothers who cannot or choose not to breastfeed need to have absolute confidence that their infant formula is ideal for their babies and have many options to choose from. Parents and others who rely on infant formula should know what's in these products and how consuming them may impact their child's health. That's why I'm directing the FDA to launch Operation Stork Speed. Amongst many things, it will study infant formula to inform updates in federal guidelines. Let me tell you why we're doing this. You see, the science of human nutrition has progressed since current guidelines were put in place in 1998. So we're going to evaluate all the common ingredients from corn syrup solids to seed oils to make sure that they meet the needs of our little ones. Some things we know are bad, like heavy metals, so we're going to increase the frequency of testing to make sure that no child drinks contaminated formula. I met with the CEOs of all the top infant formula manufacturers a couple of days ago, and they're united in support of this initiative. They are ready to make whatever changes are needed based upon the current evidence, because no one wants our children to be sick. We all want our children to grow and flourish from the moment they're born. Make America Healthy Again is something that can unite all Americans. And that's what Operation Stork Speed is all about. We're going to make American infant formula the gold standard for the world.
You know, I can't believe it's taken since 1998. Think about this. How many infants rely on formula? We have to worry about what's in it. I mean, I never even thought about it. Maybe a lot of more mothers do that. I apologize. But I just assume it's on the shelf. It's got to be safe. You start to find out about metals and oils and all this stuff in the baby formula. Think about how that impacts development, mentally, physically. Thank God. I mean, for all the talk, this would have never gotten done on anybody else. Speaking of not getting done, one of the other things that he's doing is this thing that I've come to learn. It's called GRAS. Now, that's the acronym for it. Generally recognized as safe. This is absolutely insane, what I'm about to tell you. There is stuff, and that's the only way to describe it, stuff that we ingest that they never actually checked out and just said, all right, we'll generally recognize it as safe, even though we don't have any studies. Check out what he's saying about this. This is unbelievable. Again, generally recognized as safe is a government categorization. Check out what I'm talking about. This is Kennedy again.
Launched a review of the GRAS standards, and we're going to get rid of the GRAS standards for most products. The GRAS standards is a standard that was adopted in 1958. It was adopted because when FDA was created to regulate food, there were foods that were generally recognized as safe, GRAS, generally recognized as safe, like flour, like dairy, like eggs. And they didn't want to make companies test those products, so they created that designation. But that designation was expanded by an industry that began taking advantage of it so that any new chemical that they want to add to our food is generally recognized as safe and gets no review. That's why we have 10,000 ingredients in our food in this country. In Europe, they only have 400. And we have the worst chronic disease burden of any country in the world. So we are going to get rid of the GRAS standards for new products. We're going to go back and review all of these old ingredients to make sure that they are safe. And we're going to encourage these companies to get rid of them as quickly as possible.
So just to be clear, at one point, the government just said, all right, we're going to take all these ingredients and just assume they're safe. When you look at the side of a carton and you wonder, what the heck is this and this and this and this? That's what I'm talking about. Those ones that you've never really understood. Where did this come from and what does it mean? And is it safe or not? The government at one point just sort of threw this category out and said, yeah, they're generally recognized. Do you understand how ridiculous that is? Like, we're just going to take all these ingredients, put them into a category, and that's what GRAS is, generally recognized as safe. Generally recognized. No study. I mean, you're putting stuff in your body that you don't know what it is. But the government has said, I think it's probably okay. That's literally the amount of science that went into it. Sounds good. You think it's all right? Hasn't hurt that many people? Let's just put it in. And for once, we're actually going to go back and look at it. I mean, between baby formula and this, you have to wonder. I'm one of those guys, like I said, I walk down the aisle, I see something, and I suddenly go, oh, it's on the shelf. It's got to be okay. The government let it on there. And you start to think about this. How did all this stuff happen? Over decades. Nobody thought to themselves, hey, maybe we should look into baby formula because there's metals in there. I wonder if metals are okay for a baby to ingest. You think we should ask someone about that? Maybe NIH, CDC, FDA? Nah, it's probably not a problem. What about these random products that we've never heard about before, these GRAS products? I don't know. Let's just call them generally recognized. This is the insanity of our government. And if it wasn't for Bobby Kennedy and the Maha movement as part of the part of the MAGA movement, none of this would happen. No senators looking into this. No government officials blowing the whistle. But just ask yourself a simple question. Would you want to ingest half of this stuff knowing that no one's actually ever looked at it? Do you feel okay? Do you wonder why things are happening in the world these days in terms of rates of certain diseases in the last couple decades when we allowed all this to happen? Because maybe there's a correlation. I don't know. I'm not a scientist, but I'm just saying maybe it's time that somebody looked into it. It's amazing it took this long. I'm just glad it's happening. All right. I want to tell you guys something that's just mind-blowing to me. We talked a lot about the Tesla takedowns. Okay. These are a bunch of leftist people funded at least partially by George Soros and others that are now taking out their absolute hatred of Elon Musk on Tesla dealerships, Tesla owners. I mean, I want to show you something. Take a look at these clips, if you will. Okay. Here are people vandalizing Teslas over and over and over again. I see them all the time on the internet, Twitter, Instagram, people getting called out for it. But do you notice something similar about each of these videos? I didn't pick it up at first. Start to think about this for a second. Look at the angle. It's all the same, isn't it? And you think to yourself, is some dude hidden in the parking lot over and over again, kind of getting this angle? Because I was thinking, again, sometimes you just don't, it doesn't jump out at you. And then I started to go, why? Well, I got a smart team. We started to ask some smart questions. You know what's happening? The car is recording you, dum-dums. That's the answer. Yeah, the folks at Tesla are ahead of the curve, as always. If you own a Tesla, you probably are going, yeah, it's called Sentry Mode. I didn't know this. I don't own a Tesla. But this is what Sentry Mode is. It says, when enabled, your vehicle's cameras and sensors, if equipped, remain powered on and ready to record suspicious activity around your vehicle when the Model 3 is locked and in park. Think of Sentry Mode as an intelligent vehicle security system that alerts you when it detects possible threats nearby. And once that happens, it pulses the headlights, it sounds an alarm, it displays the messages on the touch screen that messages the cameras may be recording to inform individuals. It alerts you on the alarm of the mobile app, and it saves footage of the event to a USB drive if it's installed. So just stop and think about these numbnuts that are out there doing this, because they're clearly not that smart. They're trying to go after Elon by attacking private citizens' purchases, a great American company. But that's your way of expressing displeasure with Elon, is keying somebody's car or spreading your own feces on it or whatever disgusting thing that you think is funny. But the dumb thing about this is that if you're going to be part of this destruction of a great American company that, by the way, has revolutionized transportation, you're almost ensuring your own downfall, that you will be caught because you didn't realize, dummy, that it's recording you. So bravo, idiots. Keep it up, because I look forward to more stories like this. I hope if you are one of these people, you capture it and you share it. There is a dude who actually got caught within 24 hours of keying one of these cars and is charged with felony vandalism. Good. I'm glad.
Did you just key a Tesla the other day?
Do what?
You're on video. Yeah. This is the guy. You just keyed a Tesla. You got a video online. I just saw it. It's all over the face. You have the media.
You know Tesla?
Yes, you did. You keyed a Tesla in a parking lot somewhere around here. What do you got to say about that?
That's what should happen. Dan Bongino, the new deputy director over at the FBI, is saying that the FBI is starting to investigate these attacks on Tesla dealerships and cars. They should be. It's vandalism. It's intimidation. I don't know that it rises to the level of domestic terrorism, but I know that in my anecdotal conversations with people who own Teslas, they're afraid to drive them because you spend a lot of money on a car and the last thing you want is to be keyed or, have feces thrown at it. I get it. And it's considering the last administration, they wouldn't have been prosecuted. They would be let off. No record, no nothing. At least President Trump is taking this serious. He's saying that they're going to prosecute them. That's the difference. So that's the thing, is that if you, under Biden, I get it. You knew that you could come into the country and nothing would happen. You knew that if you committed an act of violence or destruction or vandalism, you wouldn't get prosecuted. Or if you did one of these nutty protests at a university going against Israel, you'd be allowed to keep staying in school. Nothing would happen to you. You wouldn't get prosecuted. They need to show it's against the law. That's not the way you settle your differences. And by the way, why would you hurt another individual? It's not like you're going up to Elon's Tesla, which I still think is nuts. But you're going up to some random private citizen's car, keying it or destroying it or hitting on it or whatever you're doing. You should get prosecuted. You should go to jail. We need to set an example in this country that it's wrong. And the thing that's interesting to me is, for all the talk about every Democrat wants to say something about Trump, the Democrats have been largely silent on this issue, haven't they? Think about it. There's a guy who caused $3,000 worth of damage to a Tesla Model Y after he smashed it with a suitcase. It happened in California. And it's unbelievable because they're still trying to, at least as of this tweet, trying to find the guy. But I hope they do. And I hope that they prosecute him at a very serious level, because it's not just about him. It's sending a signal to everyone else that this is wrong. It's unbelievable. And the difference in leadership is what makes the difference. Under Biden, these people would have gotten away. We know that. But under President Trump, no way. All right. Before we go today, I want to share with you an interesting anecdote, a story from my experience. After we won in 2016, as we're getting ready in 2017 to take office, I come across this individual named Tony Dolan. Tony Dolan was coming into the speechwriting office. Now, I oversaw communications and press. Tony was working with the speechwriting team. Older gentleman, been around the block a few times, and sort of the old wise man, if you will. The guy who kind of would help give advice and lend a hand and guide people in the right direction. I got to know him, I thought, pretty well. I always enjoyed his company. And even when I left the White House and I was going out on my own, Tony was always there with a kind word, with an offer to help, make an introduction, just who he was. And last week, Tony died. Now, I knew a little bit about his past, but the Hoover Institute put out a video with Peter Robinson and Christopher Buckley. You might know Christopher Buckley. They're both at Hoover. Christopher Buckley is the son of William F. Buckley. And they talked about working with Tony in the Reagan era. And Tony, at that time, was Reagan's chief speechwriter. Take a look at this conversation.
The great theme of those years was the true believers versus the pragmatists. And the true believers were the speechwriters and Ronald Reagan. And this was the theme. And I thought, he must be mad. And then he writes the Westminster Address. Listen to this. This is Tony Dolan. He is a historically important figure. Listen to this. These are the words that he wrote for Ronald Reagan. I have discussed on other occasions the elements of Western policy. This is before the British Parliament. Western policies toward the Soviet Union to safeguard our interests and protect the peace. What I am describing now is a plan and a hope for the long term. The march of freedom and democracy, which will leave Marxism, Leninism on the ash heap of history, which is twisting Trotsky.
Was that Trotsky?
I think it was Trotsky. Against
Trotsky or Lenin.
Trotsky or Lenin. Yeah. A brilliant line. And it turned out the senior staff fought that tooth and nail.
Well,
Tony had to go to...
you want to pull
unbelievable.
Your hair out.
And so it was true. It was the true believers versus the pragmatists. 1983. This is a Tony speech. So I urge you to speak out against, he's talking to the National Association of Evangelicals down in Florida, Orlando. I urge you to speak out against those who would place the United States in a position of military and moral inferiority. I urge you to beware the temptation of pride. This is to the National Association of Evangelicals. I urge you to beware the temptation of pride, the temptation of blithely declaring yourselves above it all and labeling both sides as equally at fault, of ignoring the facts of history and the aggressive impulses of an evil empire.
You get the picture. This is a historically important person. He wrote the Evil Empire speech. By the way, Peter Robinson, who is doing the most of the talking there, under Tony's tutelage, wrote Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. The reason I tell you all this is I knew Tony as a very generous, kind person. I don't think I fully appreciated how impactful he was as Reagan's chief speechwriter. That's not what he did. He didn't walk around bragging. He was about no pomp, no circumstance, no ego. No tall tales about how it used to be. Most of what I know now, I learned after the fact about what an amazing guy he was. All I knew is he's a great friend, very supportive, kind, generous. And in a town where titles matter, power and access matter, that's not who he was. The reason I tell you this isn't just to honor his legacy. It's that I thought about Tony's passing the other day and I thought, wow, I can't believe I didn't get to know the person better. I didn't take as much time as I should have. So if there's someone in your life that you think is a great friend, have those conversations while you still can. Ask them about their past, their situation. I wish I had gotten to know Tony better. I'm glad that I got to know him. I'm honored that I got to know him, but I wish I had known him better. And I say this because I think there are people in all of our lives that we can maybe spend a few more minutes getting to know, thanking them for what they're doing to us. I'll miss him. Anyway, the guys from what they call the fellas from the Ruthless Variety Program. You might have heard them. They will be with us tomorrow. Senator Ron Johnson Wednesday. Margaret Olahan from the Daily Wire. She'll be here on Friday with our good friend Seb Gorka. He's here on Friday. What a week is coming your way. And by the way, Haley Caranillo took over for Dan Bongino's show. She's going to join us as part of the panel on Thursday. What a week we've got coming your way. My newsletter at SeanSpicer.com drops tomorrow. Sign up now. It's free. A lot to get to this week. We're going to have it covered for you from every angle. Thanks for kicking off your week for us. We'll see you back here tomorrow on the Sean Spicer Show.
Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.